But that's what's wrong with this generation today. These young boys today, what do she bring to the table? The hell you mean, man? What do your ass bring to the table? You got a woman that can come to the table that can make another you. What else she need to slide up to the table with? What about your job? What happened to men who were supposed to be responsible? Do you know that it's our job to take care of a woman and some children, to have a family? That's our damn job.
Okay, so there was this clip of Steve Harvey in an interview with Shannon Sharpe, and I actually, it's funny because moments after I saw the clip on Twitter, YouTube recommended the full interview. I watched about 30 minutes of it, but there's the clip that I played at the beginning of this video that I wanted to talk about. Now, typically, I don't really talk about this kind of stuff on the channel. You know, there are the, coffee, red pill, what was his name? Dang it, the guy who passed last year. What was it? Kevin Samuels, I believe. Like, I'm seeing the guy visually in my head, but the name escapes me. But yeah, I was just thinking about this clip, and I was reading some of the comments, and to me personally, I don't agree with Steve here. Now, on the one hand, I did agree, a man's job to take care of his household, the wife, his family and whatnot. But I just feel like as a man, to only require my future wife to bring nothing to the table than a womb, I feel is a bit, I don't know if sexist is the right word, but it feels barbaric, ancient, outdated. This isn't the 50s, 70s, or 80s and whatnot. The women of 2023 are not the same women from decades ago. And I feel like that's the disjointed communication between the older generation and the current generation. I mean, it's funny because I watch Vlad TV. I have been since, I want to say, not long after I quit my job, when I had time to actually, look at YouTube just to look at it. And when I was working on videos or social media, I think Godfrey was like one of the first videos I watched from Vlad TV. And over the years, Nick Cannon came on for several interviews, and in one of them, this was prior to his, cheaper by the dozen amount of kids at this point. But I remember in one interview a few years ago, he was like, you know what, and I think this was probably after his first child post Mariah, but he was like, if you're with me, if the woman is with me, they don't gotta work. I'm gonna take care of her. And if she has my kid, hey, again, I got her. If a woman's with me, she ain't gotta work. Now, yeah, there are men like that, and men who have the resources to provide. I remember that clip got a lot of backlash too, because modern day women were expecting their man. It's like, why do I gotta work at Foot Locker? Nick Cannon said he'll take care of his woman. Well, not every man is Nick Cannon. I think one comedian just went off in a video on him about the whole thing in regards to, well, Nick Cannon, you were up there with Mariah for like over 10 years or whatnot, stacking your money. So don't be putting us, everyday men in a predicament like this because of your lifestyle. But, it's just one of those things where I don't think Steve really thought about what he said before he said it. Now, granted, let me say it again. The previous generation's disconnect from the current one is staggering in more ways than one. Here's an example. Excuse me, when I got out of college, get a job. Look, I can't just run and get a job. It's not like when I was growing up, my parents, when it came to like their factory jobs and whatnot, and I had aunts who did this too. They would quit a job on a Wednesday and have a new one by Friday. That's how easy it was to find work back then. But the thing is, my generation sent off to college. I remember it was looked down upon. Like, for example, graduate high school, crossing the stage, and they'll say, Cindy Mayer is going to Yale University, and maybe they'll say to study that they'll be practicing, but they'll just say they're going to college or whatnot. But if you weren't going to college, they'll say like John Wilson workforce, meaning that this person isn't going to college, they're going into the workforce. Or it could be a situation where they're not going to college right away, but they'll be going eventually. But it was kind of looked down upon when it came to going in the workforce versus not going to college. And then you go to school to get a degree, because that was the, you know, quote unquote American dream. Like, hey, you go to school, you go to college, you get a degree, you find a good job, you get a wife, get married, have kids, start a family, and then send those kids off to school. But then, you know, I graduate college, and then finding a job isn't easy because all these like requirements and red tape. Oh, you need like 5 years of experience. It's like, but I did an internship and you all said I can do. No. And then the parents want to push you into getting any old job, whether it be like a factory job or working in a call center or whatnot. And it's like, but no, it's not like it was when you were growing up where you could just find a job. It's like, I can't just get any job. I need to get a job that, you know, applies the degree you sent me to college for, or it'll be a waste of money. The same thing is true with the older generation, you know, like Steve talking to the current generation about women and relationships and whatnot. I'm not saying all of what he said is false or what people in his age group think. There are some elements of the past that are strong foundational values for a good relationship. Case in point, Michelle Obama, for the past year or so, she's been, you know, doing interviews and, you know, her book tours and whatnot, and she's been going viral, you know, here and there whenever she talks about how the problem with people today is that they don't want to work for their marriages. Marriage isn't always sweet. It isn't always easy. But as soon as hardship comes, you know, rears its ugly head, people want to get divorces as opposed to staying and working things out. And usually it's due to a lack of compromise. And I think that's something that is very true. But the thing about it is, when it comes to the older generation talking about the current generation, more often than not, it's in a condescending and dismissive way. Like, for example, let's say I was in Shannon Sharpe, position on that couch. Like, let's say I was sitting where he was. And if Steve said what he said, and if somebody who's 31 said, well, you know, Steve, something you're not considering is, nowadays, the economy and the workforce isn't what it was when you were younger. I mean, you talk about how what does a woman bring to the table? I mean, like, okay, she can have kids. So what? Like I said earlier, it takes two to make a baby. Also, on top of that, it's the fact that I know a lot of people in my age group who are just now moving out of their parents' house because they got married, or they are in a long-term relationship with someone and they decided to get an apartment together. Or I know some people who got married and they were living in their one of their parents' basements until they were able to save up and get a house. And both of them were working. I think there's a sense of arrogance as well as ignorance when somebody successful tries to talk to people from a different generation or lower tax bracket. Because to me, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, in my opinion, what about the 3 C's? You know, let's say a woman, I'm on, you know what, speed dating or whatever, sitting at a table, woman comes up, sits down. I got a womb. Okay, and what? And then Steve pops out of nowhere. What do you mean, what? She just told you she can make another you. And what do you bring to the table? Well, I'm a successful YouTuber, eBay seller. I make a substantial amount of money each year. I'm attentive, caring. And we're supposed to go down a list of everything we bring, but a woman is just supposed to come say, I can make kids and that's it. That is ridiculous. What about the 3 C's? Chemistry, compassion, and cooking. What about that, Steve? I just feel like it was a blanket statement that it seemed like it was trashing men, but also at the same time demoralizing women. Because from my experience in recent years, the women I've, interacted with, a lot of them have that, independent, you can't tell me nothing attitude. And this is coming from white and black women. Like, hey, yeah, I don't need no man to take care of me. So it's like, well, okay. What, you just not, you want to be single forever or what? It's just one of those things where I don't think you can make those kind of irrational statements without considering different factors. Now, granted, if he's talking about like the likes of a bum with no job and, who's knocking up women left and right like they were Nick Cannon minus the money and fame, then that's one thing. But what group of men was Steve? I think that's the biggest question I have. What group of men was Steve specifically talking about when it comes to what does she bring to the table? I mean, I'm no Tyrone or, one of them, ruggedly handsome, men on the street that's able to just pick up any woman they want to. But how many of those guys ever go, so what do you bring to the table? As opposed to, hey, you're attractive. You want to have sex and that's it. I don't know. I think Steve missed the mark on it. It's just like his comments about how successful people, they don't sleep 8 hours a night or 8 hours a day. You know what? They're up working. There is some truth to that, but I feel like it's okay. When I quit my job, and I can say this from experience, when I quit my job, I was working harder for myself, making less money than I did at the call center. But eventually, that paid off, no pun intended, in spades. As I was able to build my audience, my social media following, the YouTube channel, my eBay store and whatnot, a lot of work went into it. But that's not to say I'm not working hard now, because I am. But it's over time, and I learned shortcuts and whatnot. You work smarter instead of harder. And now it's at a point where I'm making 4 times what I did at the call center. Over the past 2 years, in terms of my annual income from eBay and YouTube, I've made 4 times what I used to at the call center. That came from working smarter, not harder. Do you think I would have been able to survive this long, working my ass off with like 3 hours of sleep? No. Are there some days where I'm up like 20 something hours? Yes. But at the same time, I think Steve's way of thinking is very reckless, because the older generation of like comedians and, celebrities and whatnot, they think that the way they did things back, before social media, the internet and whatnot, is the only justifiable and respectable way of gaining success. Because, oh yeah, like these comedians who are TikTok stars and whatnot, they don't know what it takes. But, they're filling up arenas. They have Netflix specials and whatnot. And yeah, maybe they might not have the same grit and ingenuity as someone who slept in their car because, they weren't able to afford a hotel, going to a comedy gig or something like that. So, they might not know what it takes to hold on to that fame or what to do with their 15 minutes of fame while they have it. But at the same time, I think it's kind of wrong to, look down on somebody because they found success in a different way than you did. And not to mention Steve Harvey, he's had like 2 or 3 different wives. Now, some argue that, well, wouldn't it be best to take advice from someone who's been married multiple times so they know what works and what doesn't, versus someone who's never been married or only married once? I kind of see both sides of that, but it's like, yo, Steve, I mean, not every man is a multimillionaire. And then going back to your whole not sleeping 8 hours, not every successful person sleeps 8 hours a day. Well, not every successful person has 50 jobs like you do. A radio show, a judge, Family Feud, a talk show. No. And then on top of that, when it comes to a man being so successful, I mean, yeah, if you're able to, take care of your girl and whatnot and kids, and your woman doesn't have to work, yeah, that's one thing. I mean, for me personally, I would love a woman who's passionate about something. I mean, when I was in college, I was just talking to my sister because I showed her the clip. I'm like, yeah, at Liberty, there were women who were there who specifically said, I'm here to find a husband. And I know a few of them that did. At first they were working, like one of them was like a teacher for like a year or so, but then she became a stay-at-home mom, and, with a couple kids and whatnot. And that's okay. But I think that it's very ignorant to have, just to have a mindset of, what, let me find a woman who's able to pump out some babies, and I'll take care of the rest. I don't know. I just feel like there's something really wrong with that message. But that's just me. You know, I love someone who is passionate and driven, but then that, you know, begs the question of, what about compromise? Like, you know, what if she's so busy doing her own thing that you two don't have a, you know, a thriving relationship, you know, because you're doing your thing as well. I think that's looking a bit too closely at it. It's just like, I don't want, you know, to have a woman who's just laying around doing nothing. Because at that point, it's like, I would just get a dog or something, you know, a pet for companionship, as opposed to a woman who is just reaping the benefits of what I bring to the table, yet she does nothing but, you know, have kids, and that's it. Like I said before, Steve, the way you laid out the message, it's like, she can make another you, but she'll need my help in doing so. And to make a relationship work, I don't think it's about partnership, but I'm not saying that a man shouldn't lead the relationship. I mean, for sisters and Fatima fans, look at Zach and Fatima. Fatima's the one with that masculine energy trying to run things, and look how things are turning out for them. I think that that's another thing I've noticed from women nowadays. Not all, but a good portion of them. Most of them don't want to. I think Chris Rock said this in one of his specials. What was it, Kill the Messenger, when he talked about Obama, either right before the election or after he got in the White House. He's like, a white woman will play her position, but a black woman wants to play your position. Hey, Michelle, I'm the president. No, we the president. And then it's kind of funny because in real life, you know, Michelle Obama talked about how she had goals and aspirations, but she knew she would have to make compromises with her husband and let him take the lead. And a lot of women today don't want to do that. And as a result, it's like the way Steve is talking down about men is a, you know, just a bad reflection of what the dating market is today for men. I'm just saying, but that's just from my experience. I can't speak for everyone, but if I know that like 70+% of my audience here on YouTube is comprised of females, so perhaps you want to add in your own perspective. What do you think about what Steve Harvey said? And hopefully there are some men listening to this as well. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. But I just feel like, you know, when it comes down to it, when you have like that first interaction, that first date with a woman, expecting them just to bring a womb to me is just not, it's not it. Like I said before, the chemistry, do you have a lot of things in common? Maybe there's some things, you know, only one of you like, but the other shows interest. Like, hey, if you're interested in it, maybe we can try doing something together like that. I don't know. But yeah, let's talk about it more in the comment section below. And if there are other videos or topics similar to this one you want me to discuss, feel free to let me know. Like I said before, being that, you know, I rarely talk about this stuff outside of when I'm reviewing the relationships on the Tyler Perry show, you know, hey, but then again, in graduate school, I did earn a marriage counselor certificate, which is kind of funny. Yeah, I actually did take a class and I got like a preliminary certificate, so I'm technically certified to be a counselor for marriages. Ironic, right? Me of all people, but yeah, it's true. I am qualified, but you know, in terms of experience from my own life, not so much. There you go. Like and subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one.